follow your dreams. That is something that I did in my 20s, and I am so glad that I did, because I feel like you're more courageous and there's less to lose, even though I believe there's nothing to lose even if you're 79. But when you're in your 20s, you have a lot of time ahead of you, and the risk of failing doesn't seem as bad. And I feel like you can kind of unapologetically be yourself and try new things. Welcome back to another episode of Ground Up with Natalee. Thank you so much for coming back and listening. I hope that you enjoyed the first few. I know that it's been really fun for me, and I'm super excited about today's topic. I feel like I've listened to other people talk about this, and I kind of have my own perspective about it. So I wanted to bring it to the podcast and chat with you guys about it. Also, it's encompassing a lot of topics that you guys have reached out to me about, and I'm kind of putting it all in one because they just happen to be 10 things that I'm so glad I did in my 20s. And that's what today's topic is. And I'm still in my 20s, so I'm still doing these things, but I'm so glad that I experienced these things. And so I wanted to bring it to the podcast today. So I think we'll just dive right in with number one thing that I am so glad I did in my 20s. I moved out of my hometown. To take you back a little bit, in high school, I actually graduated high school 1 year early. So I graduated at 17, not because I'm super smart, but because I was like severely bullied in high school. And so I knew that I wanted to just get the fuck out. Like, I knew that it didn't serve any purpose for me. And so I took the GED and I graduated when I was 17. And so by 17, I'm out of high school and I went to a community college in my hometown. And I knew that I wanted to leave at some point. And so I saved up and I moved to LA. And I know that's not that far, but it's much different than where I'm from in Orange County. And it just brought so many new experiences to my life, and it opened my eyes to a lot of growth and new experiences, really. So one of the things that I did to move out was save money. I saved like $3,000, and that was gone very quick, but it was able to jumpstart me into making the move out of my hometown. Orange County is often referred to as the Orange County bubble. So I don't know if your hometown is like this as well, but I feel like a lot of small places are referred to as a bubble because you know all the same people often. Your friends are there, your exes are there. You see like teachers at grocery stores. There's not a lot of new things happening in your life that make you feel inspired. When you move to a new place as well, you're going to experience new coffee shops, new restaurants, and gain a new perspective on how other people live. Like, I literally moved 2 hours away, but it was still so different. And I got to meet new people and end up in new relationships. And another thing I feel like what keeps people from moving is because they're like, but I'm going to miss my friends, or my boyfriend lives here, or I'm scared to leave my family. Like, what if, they abandon me or forget about me, or no one accepts the fact that I want to move. Everyone I know has stayed here their whole life, and it's out of the ordinary to make the move. But the fact of the matter is everyone is still going to be there. No matter what, they're still going to be there a year later, 6 months later, 10 years later. We have phones now, FaceTime, all of that. I feel like there's a fear of missing out in a way, or a fear of taking that step, and then no one is going to be there for you in case you fall or in case you feel lonely. But the truth is, you're just a flight away or a drive away from going back home, and so that's always an option. So don't let that fear stop you from making the move to move out somewhere, even if it's just for a year. Like, I'm just saying, to experience it in your 20s, moving out of where you grew up from 0 to 20 years old. Pretty much moral of the story is just do it. Just move somewhere else, even if it's an hour away or 2 hours away or 10 hours away. Just do it for a little bit And your 20s are the best time because you truly have nothing to lose. So this parlays into number 2 on the list, which is to live alone at some point in your 20s. Because when you move out when you're young, you know, you might have to have a roommate, which I did for many years. I have a roommate right now. I literally have a roommate right now. But I have lived alone. And I think that everyone needs to live alone because you get a sense of self-discovery, and you get to like cook naked, and you never will be able to do that if you live with someone. And you get to scream and cry and like just experience life truly alone. You know, you can't be codependent on someone else like a roommate. And you get this sense of independence in your life where no one else is telling you how to like decorate something or how to clean something up. Like you have to make all those decisions on your own. It's an opportunity to be responsible for yourself, to have to clean, to have to pay the bills. And even if it's just a studio by yourself, I think that one of the best things that I did in my 20s was live by myself. I lived by myself for probably like an accumulative of 4 years. And the reason I live with someone else now is because I moved into a place with my now ex-boyfriend. And, you know, we thought we were going to live together forever in that place. And we ended up breaking up. So I was like, okay, well, I really want to stay in this apartment because I absolutely love it. It's my dream home. And so instead of moving out, because it's a big space and him and I were splitting it. So I was like, okay, I'd rather just have a roommate come move in with me rather than move out. And so a friend of mine moved in, and it's been amazing. But I'm so glad that at some point I got to experience just really unapologetically living in my own space. It's one of my greatest times in life because so much creativity came out of living alone as well. Like sometimes I was forced to just be alone. Like no one can hang out. I don't live with anybody. I don't have work that day. And you're just alone, and creative thoughts actually come to you. And it's just like, it's very spiritual too when you're truly alone in those moments where maybe if you had a roommate, you would kind of be codependent and reach out to them. I think that it creates this sense of independence. Number 3 on 10 things that I'm so glad I did in my 20s is to be single and date a lot of people. Like this is, I don't know if this is one of my favorite ones or it's just advice that I give the most out to friends because they can be so bogged down by like a breakup. And I feel like being single is so much fun and we don't give it enough credit. And I understand that, especially as women, we feel like ashamed to not be in a relationship, especially if it's been a really long time or we have to go back home for the holidays and we don't get to bring someone. But I feel like the sooner we can embrace it, the better and the more empowering it feels. And dating is so much fun. Like, trust me, if you believe in marriage or you believe in monogamy and long-term commitment, you will get there. There will be a time for you to get there. But right now, whatever state you are in, even if you're not in your 20s, embrace being single. You don't have to call to anyone. You don't have to be responsible for anyone else's feelings. It's just you. This is your time to be extremely selfish in a way. And I think that there's something super valuable to that because one day you're going to be in a marriage and it's no longer just you, especially if you are someone who wants a family. I definitely want a family in the future. And right now, I don't have any responsibility for like another human being, whether that be my child or even my husband. Because when you're in a relationship, you are in a partnership. And even if you want to spend time alone, which is great, I'm in a partnership right now and I often need time alone. And that still takes me communicating that I need that time and space. And when you're single, you don't have to do that. Another great thing about being single is dating, meeting new people, figuring out what you want and what you don't want in these partners that you're seeking out, right? Whereas if you get into a relationship right when you're 17 to 25 or 20 to 29 or whatever, you don't have this time and space to be able to figure out what you really want because you've never experienced anything else. You've truly only experienced this one human being. And there's something so important in getting to know other people, getting to know what traits you like, what you know you don't like, and just experiencing. I mean, that's what your 20s are for, is experiencing. And also if you're unsure about a relationship that you're in right now because you've been in it for a really long time, or you kind of want to experience what's still out there, I can guarantee you that feeling is not going to go away. You can't just push it down. It's going to lay heavy on your chest, and you're going to release it in other ways that you're not going to want to. So maybe you can just have a conversation with your partner and go on a break. Like, I'm so for breaks. And even if that means like a real break where it's like, I want to break up, but you never know what could happen in the future, or just a literal like, I need to take a month off, and that doesn't mean that I don't love you, but I feel there's tension in my chest that's making me feel like I need to experience more, and I know that it would be better for the longevity of your life and my life. And that takes a ton of courage, and I'm so aware of that. I've been in situations where I have had to make that decision in my 20s. Obviously, I'm still in my 20s. This was in my early 20s, where I had to really be like, I really love this person, but there's something gnawing at me where I know that this isn't right now. And that I'm feeling like I want to experience more. And that's just our intuition coming in and really letting us know, like, hey, something's off, and you need to take some time to discover what that might be. And it takes a lot of uncomfortability and courage. But on the other side of that is everything that you want. So on this topic, I think that we should talk about dating apps versus meeting in person. And my perspective on that is I'm down for both. I think dating apps are great if you're open to them. The only thing I would say is if you're going to download a dating app, then be open to it. I mean, obviously you're open to it if you're downloading it, but I have so many friends that are on the dating apps, but they complain about it. And they're like, they're awful. And if they're awful, then, get off of them, but they stay on them. And it's like an addiction. Try to have an open mind and kind of maybe state some affirmations about how you want this experience to go on the dating app. I feel like by manifesting that type of energy, you'll have a better chance at meeting someone rather than if you're like, this is horrible. All these people on here are trash. I'm just saying this from experience of friends telling me of dating apps that they've been on. And I've been on a few, and they were fine. They weren't my favorite thing, but I embraced them, and for what it was worth, it was fun, and I needed that at that time. I was gonna say that obviously it's better to meet in person, but why is it better to meet in person? I think that if you meet on a dating app and you connect, I'm going to a friend's wedding this year in Italy. They met on a dating app, and they are the happiest couple that I literally know. So I don't think there's anything wrong with dating apps. It's if it infringes on your self-care and mental health, which could totally be a thing, because we have Instagram, we have TikTok, now we have dating apps, and between every other notification that we need to check with mail and text messages and phone calls and all of that. So if it's infringing on your mental health and the capacity in which you want to create space for positivity, then delete them. Because even if you need to delete them just for a couple weeks and like reset, do that. Because the last thing you want is to do something that stresses you out. In fact, if you're doing something that stresses you out and it has to do with a dating app, then it's just going to bring that energy into the conversations and into the way that you're trying to manifest to meet someone. It'll probably work against you. And then meeting in person, I mean, when I was single, I would often just go to bars with my friends, with my girlfriends. I feel like it was super fun. Also, my mindset about that, I tried to be as open as possible, just like the dating apps, because I found that if I were going out one night and I was hoping to meet someone, but I was like, every guy in LA is trash, and there's no way I'm going to meet someone, which I had those nights for sure, then I would often manifest that type of night. Whereas if I were going out with friends, like super, excited, like, I had a shitty day today, but tonight's at least going to be fun. Like, let's get cute and kind of have a positive attitude for it. No joke, like they would flock to my friend group because we're all, enjoying ourselves, having a good time, rather than putting all this pressure and negative energy on being single and like there not being many fish in the sea or anything like that. So moral of the story is definitely date in your 20s as much as you can, even if that's, you know, you've been in a relationship from 20 to 28. Okay, then, and you don't feel like it's right. It is never too late to meet someone. My mother is 63 and I tell her, she's in a relationship right now, but I tell her like, you know, it's never like they can still get married and have a whole life. She has 40 years left on this planet. And if you're 20, you have 80 years left on this planet. And if you're 30, you know what I mean? Like there's never a bad time to fall in love or to start something new or to move to a new place to experience it. So definitely embrace dating and meeting new people. Okay, tip number 4 of what to do in your 20s is follow your dreams. That is something that I did in my 20s, and I am so glad that I did, because I feel like you're more courageous and there's less to lose, even though I believe there's nothing to lose even if you're 79. But when you're in your 20s, you have a lot of time ahead of you, and the risk of failing doesn't seem as bad. And I feel like you can kind of unapologetically be yourself and try new things. And for me, following my dream was moving to LA to be an actor. And if I were to stay at the status quo of my hometown, which was like get married, raise a family, have a 9-to-5 job, I will tell you right now, like I would not be happy, because I had that burning desire inside me to go and pursue a career in acting. And I totally understand that it's not for everyone to kind of know what they want to do so young. That was definitely a blessing for me. But I feel like so many people are set to make this decision at literally 16, right? Isn't that when you start talking about colleges and where you want to go, and you start touring places and like taking placement tests? I don't know. I didn't go to traditional college, but I think that's the way that it goes. How are you supposed to know at 16 exactly what you want to do and then sign a 4-year contract? I don't know, do people sign contracts for college? But, you know, pick a school that you want to go to for 4 years from 18 to 22 on one thing that you want to do. It doesn't make sense to me. So if you have a burning desire to do something that isn't traditional, there's no better time to take action on that than right now, no matter how old you are, but then in your 20s. And even if you went to 4 years of college from 18 to 22 and now you're like, I don't want to do that, that's really hard. It's really hard to admit that, to allow your intuition to come to your heart and mind and say, this is how I've been feeling. And then on top of that, to admit it to friends and family. My experience with family was that they weren't so supportive of my journey as far as like, I don't want to go to college. My mom and dad supported it, but I have a really big family, and there was a lot of talk in the family of like, oh, she wants to go to LA to be an actor, good luck type of stuff. And honestly, I think that it probably lit a fire under my ass, because it was like, oh, you don't think I can do it? Watch me do it. And I understand that we don't all have that capability, but I think that right now at 28, I'm 28, if I didn't follow my dream and my gut, my burning desire to be an actor, and I was appeasing these people in my life that I don't even talk to on a monthly basis, I would be pretty miserable, because not only didn't listen to what I wanted to do, but I listened to someone that, let's say, I respect, but they're not even a huge part of my life. And this is going to sound morbid, but they're going to die one day. And like, what if they die before you? Then you're left with just it. My point is you come home to yourself every single day. Nobody else. You come home to yourself, and you don't need to live your life for somebody else. And I feel like we can get stuck in this rut where we feel like we have to choose one thing and then we can't switch out of it later. You can go into photography and then the next day be like, I want to go to nursing school. And that is okay. Life is meant to fail, try again, fail, try again, fail. I'm using quotation marks. It's not failing, it's living life. It's giving yourself purpose and passion and growth and learning, and have grace with yourself going through all of this, especially in your 20s, because you don't know what you're doing. We're like a fledgling, and we're thrown off of the roof, and we have to figure out how to fly. What happens with little birds when they leave their mother's nest? They can't fly right away. They fall. They literally fall. And then they have to get up and try again and get up and try again. And that's how they learn to fly. So if you're not falling and then having to get up again and try, you're never going to fly. And so yeah, follow your dreams. Number 5 in 10 things I'm so glad I did in my 20s is take care of your mental health. I feel like this is something in my generation that we learned way later on in life, and that the older generation has yet to really learn or care about. They still think that therapy means that something's wrong with you. Luckily, the younger generation is kind of growing up in this day and age where mental health is really important, and it is, mindfulness is cool, which I love and I'm so behind. In your 20s, if you can, take care of your mental health. Have self-care days, get into therapy, read a book about self-care. A book that I read in my early 20s that literally changed my life is by Louise Hay, and it's called You Can Heal Your Life. And it's one of the first books that I read that really launched me into the mental health and wellness space, and how I became passionate about it, and how I started my own growth and spiritual journey. It's called You Can Heal Your Life, and I read it when I was 23. Another really good, I feel like, beginner book about mental health and spirituality is Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. It is so good and it's super digestible. And so I feel like the earlier you can start to be selfish in a way, right? You have to fill yourself all the way up before you can fill anyone else up. So people pleasing is a thing, and I totally understand it. I am a people pleaser for sure, but as I've kind of grown up, I'm starting to learn that in order to truly please people, I need to say no to things so I can take care of myself and have time and space to take inventory on how I'm feeling and what I truly want in life and how I can take care of myself in that moment. I feel like the earlier on in life that we do that, the better. It sets ourselves up for success later on in our life. And it just builds like a really healthy foundation for anything that you want to pursue, family, friends, career. It's all about taking care of your mind, body, and soul. And the sooner that you can do that, the better. Okay, number 6 in 10 things that I'm so glad I did in my 20s is to learn about money. Learn about investing and 401k and Roth IRA and set up a budget, all of these things. So I learned about investing, I think it was in 2020 during the pandemic. So I was like 25. I had never invested before. I had no 401k, no Roth IRA, which are retirement funds. You put money away now, and by the time you're 65, it like quadruples, and then you have like $1 million. I never believed it. I was like, no, I want to keep my money now. But after, actually researching about it and how much it's important to take care of yourself in the long run so that you have that, you're taking care of yourself and your future family, I guess, is what it means by putting away a retirement fund. So that's a Roth IRA or a 401k, and I'm sure there's other ones. And you literally I think you can put a maximum of like $6,000 a year into this account, but you can literally do $100 a month. Like start really small, but you feel like you have like healthy money habits by investing in yourself, especially if you're investing in your future self. And then more of a short-term investment is stocks. So I just learned about stocks and I've been investing in them for like 2 years, and it's really fun. I feel super knowledgeable and like I'm in control of my money. And at least you have the choice if you learn about it. If you learn about stocks now, like literally just read a few articles about what they even are, at least you can make that decision yourself. Like, oh, I can't afford it right now. Or like, oh no, it makes sense to put some money away every month to hope that it accumulates. And what I do now, I'll just tell you what I do. I do the S&P 500, which is like 500 of the biggest companies in America are all in this one pool of stocks. And what they say is if you put into this mutual fund every single week or month, that over the course of 7 years, your money doubles. I don't know. This is just what they say. This is what they say to be true. And apparently that has been the pattern that's been happening over the years. So that's how I chose to invest my money. I'm not saying it's the right way or the wrong way. Please do your research on it. I am not a finance connoisseur. I am just a young woman who wants to invest her money somewhere, and that's what I chose to do. And so far, so good. I've done it. I did it 2 years ago, and the market's been a little bit crazy, but it's the safest way to do it, in my opinion, is the mutual funds, it's called. So if you're looking to look something up, you can look up mutual funds and a Roth IRA, which is the retirement fund. On that note, in my 20s, I would have liked to do this more, is save money. So like I wish that every paycheck that I got since I was working at a restaurant when I was 20, I wish that I just put like 5 or 10%. Let's just make it super easy. 10% can seem jarring, especially if you have rent and you can barely get by. 5%. Let's say that's like, let's see, my checks when I was working at a restaurant were like $700 every 2 weeks. So that's $1,400 a month times 5%, $70 a month. Okay, let's say you put you're 20 and you put $70 a month away every day. By the time you're 30, you'll have $8,400. I don't know, it's just like a rainy day account. And you could start that at any time. You could start that right now, even if you're 59 years old. But in my 20s, I wish that I had saved more because, saving is just, it's always good to have that little safety net. So on the savings note, I would say before you save, don't accrue debt. So try to get rid of all the debt possible that you can. Credit card debt, anything with interest, because there's no point to be paying like a high interest rate on something if you can try to pay it off. And this all comes to prioritizing your spending and creating a budget. So like these are all things that I would just look into, right? How to create a budget. There's an app called Mint that I use. You can also create your own on an Excel spreadsheet. But by that, you can create a budget so you don't have to pay interest on credit card debt because you can see exactly where you're overflowing, exactly what you have to cut back on. Okay, I cannot buy coffee this month. If I don't buy coffee this month, I'm going to save $70, which I can put to this credit card that's at $700. If you chip away $70 every month at this credit card, it's going to go away. You just have to take time to organize these things. And my advice, if I heard this in my early 20s, I would have been real happy because I paid my fair share of credit card interest charges. And it's pointless because you're giving money to these companies who are already billion-dollar companies, and interest rates right now are absolutely insane. So if you can take any control over your finances, even if it's just a little bit, I know that it's hard to have a car and rent and feed yourself, and you have to live on your own or live with a roommate, and you want to go out still and all these things. But in the long run, it's not going to be fun. The earlier you get a hold on your finances, the healthier you're going to be, because finance is one of those things, one of those like money problems that can really weigh on you and cause stress and depression. And it's just not a mentally healthy state to be in. So I feel like I kind of talked about this one earlier, but number 7 is to explore different jobs and career options. So like go be an intern for someone or be an assistant or go work at a coffee shop. Like in your 20s, go do it all. Just learn and quit and get fired and mess up. Or if you already know what you want to do, let's say you want to be an author. So like, what are steps that you can take to kind of get into that field? And I feel like, reaching out, emailing one of your favorite small authors and being like, hey, do you need any help with anything? Can I, do you need someone to help you write your weekly emails? I don't know, something like that to get you in the door and create new cognitive functions in your brain, like things that you wouldn't actually usually do it so then you could learn new things from new people rather than like, okay, I already signed up for this. I have to work at this place for the rest of my life. Like, no, in your 20s is a time to experiment and try new things. And the best way to learn is to be in the field that you want to be in and play and have fun and be creative. And I feel like in your 20s too, you kind of have this blind confidence of sharing your ideas because society hasn't like bogged you down too much yet. So you feel like, oh, I can share this with this person. And that's just how you learn more. I just saw the movie The Fabelmans, which is lightly based on Steven Spielberg's life. And he's obviously an incredible director. And he started directing his own films when he was like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way up. But when he finally moved to LA and he was working, okay, so he was trying to make his dad proud by like going to school and being in finance, I think it was. And he was just absolutely miserable. He was having panic attacks and just not happy, but it was just the way of life. His dad literally said, like, this movie stuff that you want to do isn't real life. You have to try this other way first. But guess what? That was the dad's way of life, not his son's. They have different minds. They have different passions. And so the son Steven Spielberg wanted to appease his father and went to school and did all the things. And one day he came home with like a huge panic attack. And he's like, I don't know what's going on. And his dad ended up being like, okay, you want to pursue this thing? Go for it. And so after getting that permission, he went and applied to a bunch of different directors to work with them and work for them. And all of them said no. But he finally got one letter from this one place. I think it was CBS or something like that. And so he got all dressed up and he's already happier. Like just by walking into this interview office to be an assistant to a director, he was happier doing that than being in the big boy office at the finance firm, making a lot of money, already went to college, blood, sweat, and tears. But he was happier just by having this little meeting that didn't even mean anything for sure. It was just a meeting with this director because he walked into this director's office and there were movie posters all over the walls. And he was so inspired and his heart just sang. You could see it in his eyes. And that was literally the end of the movie because it was him walking off the CBS lot and it was him like skipping off into the sunset of what was now going to become his huge career, as we all know now. And I feel like that's such a great example of taking a risk and, he didn't have a for sure plan. He didn't know this directing thing was going to work out, but it made his heart happy. And a lot of times when your passions and your actions line up, the universe is going to conspire with you. Okay, number 8 things that I'm so glad that I learned in my 20s is exercise. I did not exercise from like teenage years all the way up to like 24. I think I took moving my body seriously in like my mid 20s. And I'm so glad that I did because it really contributes to my mental health. And I know this because of the research I've done on the dopamine that's released in your brain when you exercise, when you move your body. It's life-changing. When I work out in the morning for an hour versus when I don't work out in the morning for an hour, my whole day has shifted. And I feel like when you're in your 20s, you have more energy and more time to where you can kind of build that habit. And you don't need to work out 7 days a week for 60 minutes, right? I'm talking about a 20-minute walk outside. But if you're in your 20s and you're like, okay, I'm going to start this habit, it's going to stay with you forever. It's going to become part of your lifestyle. You are going to be a person who works out, you know? People that work out 5 days a week and do hot yoga or kickboxing or go to the gym, they're not special. They just have cultivated a habit where they work out. So I feel like that's one thing that I wish I did probably earlier on, but now I've definitely made it a habit and it's a game changer. So go try like a different class. Go try yoga and boxing or a gym nearby, or go run at the park. My workouts of choice are hot yoga, running, and boxing. Those are the 3 things that I love to do. So try something new. So this actually parlays into kind of the last one that I was talking about. But number 9 is to fail at something. And you're going to fail a bunch of times, but I mean something that you wouldn't normally do. So like take an acting class just to fail at it, because it's going to help you grow, and it's going to help you not take yourself too seriously, not take life too seriously. It's going to create humility within yourself. Take a photography class and be really bad at it. You know, do a sport. Oh my God. So here's a story for you. I tried softball, like literally over the summer, probably 5 months ago. And my friend was like, hey, I'm on a softball team. It's like an adult softball team. And he's like, do you want to sub in? One of the players can't make it. And I'm like, I've never played softball, but let's do it. He's like, oh yeah, you don't need to like know how. It's really easy. So I was like, sure. So I go, and he's like, I have a bat, gloves, everything for you. So I go to this game, and sure enough, it's, you know, it's PE all over again. It's pretty simple. They just throw the ball and you hit it with the bat and whatever. But I was still like learning the rules of baseball. I realized I didn't really, or softball, or I think the rules are the same, but I didn't really know, like when I was in the outfield, I didn't know what I was doing when I would catch the ball. So I'm failing right there, because they're like, Natalee, throw the ball to me over here. Like this is, I'm like, oh, and I'm on the opposite side of the field, like throwing further out into the field. But one thing that happened was I was up to bat and I finally hit the ball. Super stoked. So I run, and I make it to second base. So now I make it to third base. I make it past first base and I make it to third base. And I'm like, I'm a legend. I just ran 2 whole bases. Let's go. So the next person on my team hits the ball. And I'm like, great. I'm going to run all the way home. I'm going to run to home plate. And I make it to third base and whatever. I don't know what base. The base before, you know, home base. And I get past it and I realize that, you know, they still don't have the ball. So I start running more all the way to home. And I slide into home base to really just make it a point that I am indeed getting a home run for my team. I slide past the base and I was indeed not touching it, because I did not realize that you needed to have your hand on the base. I thought you can just kind of touch it and go past it. So I didn't get the home run. And on top of that, I slid so hard that my entire thigh, because I was wearing shorts like a genius, and arm were bleeding everywhere. And I now have a scar, which you can't see it if you're listening to the podcast, but maybe if you're watching the YouTube video. I have a scar here, and it doesn't look like it's going away. I think it's going to maybe be there forever. And it's just going to be my little reminder of taking a risk of playing a game that I've never played before and failing. But I had a lot of fun and I learned something new. And honestly, it was a rush. I want to go back and do it again. And in something like that too, that was a sense of community. Like everyone was, you know, making sure that I was okay. And it was really fun. But yeah, so that was number 9, to fail at something. Number 10 of 10 things that I'm so glad I did in my 20s is to build your version of a spiritual practice. For me, I was raised Christian. I went to 10 years of Christian school growing up, and that was a base for my spirituality, but I ended up coming out of believing in full-on Christianity, and I have now formed my own sense of spirituality, which is connecting with the universe, with source, with a higher power than myself, with energy. And I discovered that in my 20s by consuming content, I guess, like reading a lot. What are other people's perspectives on things that opened my mind to what a spiritual life could look like? And I ended up finding my own version of it, and then ended up creating a journal based on it called Magic. And Magic is my spirituality practice. And I feel like it shouldn't be some sort of pressure that you need to go find a practice for you. But I think that this is a really good time to develop your own point of view of what you think groundingness is and spirituality. How do you connect with others? How do you connect with yourself? How do you connect with a higher power? If you do you or do you not? You know? And I think that in your 20s is a great time to create that structure for yourself to then carry with you for the rest of your life. And once you do figure that out, it just really helps, because I feel like we go through a lot of trials and tribulations in our 20s, new jobs, new relationships, and it's always something that you can go back to. For me, I meditate, and I pretty much pray through meditation when I'm going through something or when I'm not, giving thanks, gratitude, setting intentions, stating affirmations. These are all things that I've cultivated to create a practice that helps me grow and be the absolute best version of myself that I can be, and contribute to conversations, or contribute to if someone needs help, like, hey, this is what helps me. But in order to do that, you have to know what works for you. And so I feel like finding that purpose in your life, that space where a higher power may live, and discovering that on your own and what it means to you, not anybody else, no one else's teachings, or maybe you already have one that you believe and you strengthen that, right? If you are Buddhist, Christian, Jewish, like how can you strengthen that so then you have a really solid core foundation of what you believe? And I feel like a way to do that would be to learn more about it, learn more about the history of your spiritual practice, and of course, take action on actually doing it. What does that look like for you? Is it a morning routine? Do you sit quietly and take a bath and, tap into a higher energy? What does that look like for you? And how can you make that show up every single day so you are living to the highest version of yourself that you can be? I know that my spiritual practice has gotten me through a lot of quote unquote failures in my 20s. I'm an actress, and I've gone on many auditions, and I've had a lot of no's, and it's been really hard. And I feel like if I didn't have that guidance from what I've learned in, what I've learned from taking action on different kinds of spiritual practices, then I would be in a different place than I am now. That is definitely a fact. It has helped me immensely. There's so many different kinds of practices that you can look up, or you can just literally be like, hey, my spiritual practice is getting quiet with myself every day just to have some more self-discovery and check in and see how I'm feeling. And that's enough. But it does matter to do that rather than to do nothing and just kind of go through the motions all of your 20s, never connecting on a deeper level with yourself or with a higher power, and just, chugging through work and life and friends and being a yes man to everything and not taking inventory on what's even happening in your life. And I think that's the difference between finding a spiritual practice and something that works for you and not. So it's definitely been a game changer for me in my 20s. Well, you guys, that was 10 things that I am so happy I've done in my 20s, and I hope that they were helpful for you. If you liked today's episode, please rate this podcast, and I cannot wait to chat with you guys next week. We have a really special guest. Thanks, guys.